My name is Megan. I am 30 years old. My heart wouldn't stop fluttering, a frantic bird trapped in my ribs. We were supposed to be celebrating 3 years together, our anniversary a date circled in red on the calendar, a day that now felt less like a milestone and more like a finish line I was crawling towards. I'd spent everything we had on this vacation, draining my savings for a desperate, last-ditch effort to fix the hairline fractures that had splintered through the foundation of our life. Liam, my husband, wasn't the man I married. He was a ghost haunting the shell of that man, a felony from when he was 17, joyriding in a stolen car that ended in a crash, followed him like a shadow, branding every job application with a scarlet letter. For 4 long, suffocating months, I watched him sink deeper into himself, the rejections chipping away at his confidence until only resentment and apathy remained. I picked up the slack, my life a blur of 40, 5-hour work weeks as an assistant manager, the constant pressure of inventory and scheduling a dull ache behind my eyes. That salary had to stretch to cover our apartment, our 3 cats, Apollo, Artemis, and Hermes, and our goofy golden retriever, Buster. I shouldered it all, my own dreams packed away like old photographs. I saw the emptiness in his eyes, the way his shoulders were permanently slumped in defeat. We couldn't afford this trip, not by a long shot. My credit card bill was a testament to that. But I had to do something. I thought if I could just get him away, get him to a place with sun and sand and the endless blue of the ocean, maybe we could find our way back to each other. I imagined us walking on the beach, the waves washing away the stress and worry, the salt air cleansing the bitterness that had seeped into our home. I pictured us laughing again, a real, genuine laugh, remembering the inside jokes and shared glances that had once been the language of our love. For a couple of days, it almost worked. The illusion was perfect. We built elaborate sandcastles, defending them from the tide with the fierce determination of children. We explored the little town, holding hands as we browsed the quirky shops. I let myself hope, a dangerous, fragile thing. I saw flashes of the old Liam, the one with the easy smile and infectious laugh that I'd fallen for, the one who could make me forget the world with a single look. But then, things started to feel off. He was jumpy with his phone, angling the screen away from me with a practiced casualness that wasn't casual at all. A little wall, pixel by pixel, was being built between us. I'm an empath. I've always felt emotions as if they were weather patterns, and the pressure was dropping. It was a small thing, a change in the air, but it was enough to make me anxious, a low hum of dread beneath the surface of our manufactured happiness. The truth came crashing down on the 3rd night. He was in the shower, the water drumming against the tiles, and his phone lit up on the nightstand. A name I didn't know, a string of playful, winking emojis that made my stomach clench. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against the sudden, roaring silence in my ears. I know I shouldn't have. It was a violation, a trespass into a private space. But a force stronger than reason, a desperate need to know, pulled me forward. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. His passcode was our anniversary. The irony was a physical blow. I saw everything. The words on the screen swam before my eyes, a toxic soup of flirtation and intimacy that wasn't mine. I miss that laugh of yours. You're the only one who gets me. Inside jokes I wasn't a part of. And then the one that broke me. The one that shattered the last vestiges of my hope. Stop teasing and send me something to remember you by. He was asking her for nude pictures. A woman from his past. A woman he swore was just an old friend. I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in on me. When Liam came out of the bathroom, a towel slung low on his hips, smiling and carefree, he found me sitting there, his phone clutched in my white, knuckled hand. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by the wide-eyed panic of a cornered animal. The fight was a blur of my choked sobs and his pathetic, predictable excuses. He was lonely, he said. He was just looking for a little attention, a harmless ego boost. It didn't mean anything, Elora, I swear. It was just words. His words were hollow, meaningless in the face of the raw, visceral pain he had inflicted. The rest of the trip was a performance, a hollow pantomime of a happy couple. We moved through the motions, our smiles brittle, our touches fleeting and charged with unspoken resentment. The beautiful place we were in felt like a prison, its beauty a mocking counterpoint to the ugliness between us. The flight home was silent, the engine noise a deafening roar that filled the space where our conversation should have been. Our apartment, my home, my sanctuary, didn't feel safe anymore. It was contaminated, filled with everything I wasn't saying. When I finally found the courage to tell his brother and his best friend, their reaction was swift and absolute. They were on my side completely. They'd seen how much I'd done for him, the sacrifices I'd made, and they cut him off without a second thought. He had bitten the hand that fed him, and now he was truly, utterly alone. He became a ghost in our home, his presence a constant, painful reminder of what he'd done. I looked at him, and my heart would ache with a toxic mixture of pity and hot rage. I could see how much he was hurting, how much he hated himself. The empath in me, the part of me that feels everything, wanted to fix it, to soothe his pain. But then I'd look at myself in the mirror. I saw the dark circles under my eyes, the dullness in my skin, the way the life seemed to have drained out of my face. I was drowning in his betrayal, in the weight of his dependence, in the crushing responsibility of holding our broken world together. The moment of clarity came on a Tuesday night. I was on the floor with my animals, the cat's a warm, purring blanket on my lap, Buster's heavy head resting on my knee. I remembered reading a study once about how interacting with pets can lower cortisol, the stress hormone. Their love was so simple, so unconditional. It asked for nothing but to be loved in return. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by that pure, uncomplicated affection, I remembered who I was before all this. I was strong. I was capable. I was more than just someone's wife, someone's provider. I realized I couldn't save him. I couldn't fix our marriage. It wasn't my job to piece him back together after he had so carelessly shattered me. I could only save myself. The thought of being alone was terrifying, a vast, empty expanse. But the thought of staying, of letting myself disappear completely in his shadow, was so much worse. The next morning, I packed a bag. My movements felt calm, certain, each folded shirt a step towards a new life. I left a note on the counter, right next to his favorite coffee mug. No angry words, no accusations. Just a simple, final goodbye. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Walking out of that apartment, the familiar weight of my keys in my hand, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a physical release from the suffocating grip of his lies. I didn't know what was next, what the future held. The road ahead was a blank page. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't drowning anymore. I was free. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it and want to listen to more emotional and simple stories, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel Infinite Hearts.